The massive conference chamber hummed with tension. Holographic displays flickered, showing devastated star systems, silent witnesses to the destruction that crept closer with each passing moment. Delegates from 100 different alien civilizations sat frozen, their collective fear practically visible in the air. Captain J. Park stood at the back of the chamber, his posture rigid, eyes scanning the room. He was the only human representative among hundreds of alien species, each more exotic and complex than the last. The Galactic Confederation had called an emergency meeting, but words were failing them. Thorax, a gelatinous representative from the Aquilon Collective, shifted uncomfortably in his translucent environmental suit. "We must analyze the potential outcomes," he droned, his voice a low, gurgling sound that echoed through translation devices. The statistical probability of a sharp beep interrupted him. Captain Park's holographic display activated, casting a blue-white light across the chamber. The moment the data appeared, a collective gasp swept through the room. The Void Swarm's invasion path was mathematical perfection, a terrifying progression that would consume entire star systems within weeks. Planetary defenses were useless. Entire civilizations would be erased, reduced to cosmic dust. "We have 3 standard galactic weeks," Park said quietly, his voice cutting through the growing panic. "And we have exactly 0 comprehensive defense strategies." The alien delegates looked at him, some with fear, some with confusion, most with a growing sense of hopelessness. Detailed star charts began populating Park's display. Red markers showed destroyed systems. Blue markers indicated potential invasion routes. The pattern was clear and horrifying. The Void Swarm moved, like a cancer through space, consuming everything in its path. And Xyloxian Diplomat, a crystalline being that looked like a walking prism, spoke next. "Our combined fleet represents over 10,000 vessels. Yet we cannot coordinate a single, unified response." Park knew what they were seeing. Decades of peaceful coexistence had made these civilizations soft. They had forgotten how to fight. Diplomacy and bureaucratic procedures had replaced genuine survival instincts. The conference room temperature seemed to drop. Alien delegates shifted uncomfortably, their various physiological responses revealing deep fear. Tentacled beings pulsed with anxiety. Methane-breathing species released sharp chemical signals of distress. But Captain Park remained calm. He understood something they did not. Humanity's history was written in survival. Every major human achievement came from impossible situations. Wars, environmental challenges, technological limitations. Humans did not just survive. They transformed challenges into opportunities. The holographic display continued showing the Void Swarm's relentless progression. Each marker represented millions of potential lives. Each system represented centuries of civilization, and they were all about to be erased. "We need a plan," Park said simply. Silence answered him. Not a confused silence, not a contemplative silence, but the silence of complete intellectual paralysis. The Void Swarm was something completely outside their collective experience. A threat that didn't follow known invasion protocols. A force that consumed entire dimensional spaces, not just planetary systems. Park's fingers moved subtly across his datapad. Calculations, potential scenarios, probability matrices that would make most species' computational systems overheat. Humans were different. Where others saw complexity, humans saw solvable problems. The conference chamber felt like a tomb. Alien delegates looked defeated, their collective technological might suddenly feeling inadequate against this cosmic threat. But Captain J. Park saw something else. He saw opportunity. The Void Swarm was advancing. The Galactic Confederation was frozen, and humanity was about to show them exactly what humans could do when backed into a corner. First contact with the most dangerous extra-dimensional invasion in galactic history was about to get very interesting. And no one, absolutely no one, was prepared for what humans were going to do next. Yoon Choi's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, her eyes reflecting complex mathematical patterns. The research facility buzzed with an energy that felt both electric and calculated. Outside the reinforced windows, Earth looked peaceful, completely unaware of the cosmic threat approaching. "We're not dealing with a traditional invasion," she muttered, pulling up dimensional mapping charts. Her team of researchers watched, silently, a mix of anticipation and nervous energy filling the room. The void swarm wasn't like anything humanity had encountered before. It wasn't just a military threat. It was a dimensional anomaly that consumed entire space-time regions. Traditional weapons would be useless. Conventional military strategies would fail instantly. Captain J. Park entered the research center, his boots making sharp sounds against the metallic floor. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Everyone understood the stakes. Yoon pulled up a complex holographic model showing the void swarm's progression. Red tendrils stretched across multiple, dimensional planes, consuming everything in their path. Normal matter simply disappeared. No explosions, no resistance, just complete erasure. "We need something they won't expect," she explained to her team. "Something that breaks their fundamental invasion mechanism." Quantum entanglement became their primary weapon. Where other species saw complex physics, humans saw a potential strategy. They would use the void swarm's own dimensional instability against itself. Prototype devices began taking shape, small machines that looked more like intricate sculptures than weapons. Each device represented years of theoretical research, pushed into practical application by the most extreme deadline imaginable. Park watched silently. Humans had always been good at turning impossible challenges into opportunities. This would be no different. The research facility worked in shifts. Nobody went home. Nobody slept more than a few hours. Coffee machines ran constantly. Computer systems processed billions of calculations per second. "We're creating dimensional disruptors," Yoon explained to Park. "Devices that can essentially confuse the void swarm's expansion mechanism." It was like developing a vaccine against a disease that didn't follow any known biological rules. Each calculation was a potential breakthrough. Each model was a potential salvation for multiple civilizations. Military engineers joined the research team. They brought practical implementation strategies. Where theoretical physicists saw mathematical models, military minds saw tactical advantages. Prototype. Weapons took shape. They didn't look like traditional armaments. Some resembled complex mathematical instruments. Others looked like artistic installations. But each represented humanity's unique approach to problem solving. Park reviewed the initial designs. Most alien species would consider them absurd. Humans saw them as elegant solutions. The Galactic Confederation had sophisticated technology. Massive energy weapons, complex defensive shields, entire fleets of advanced spacecraft. But they lacked something fundamental: the ability to think completely outside established protocols. Humans didn't just break rules, they rewrote them entirely. Yoon's team worked faster. Computer systems predicted potential invasion routes. Mathematical models showed dimensional weak points. Each breakthrough felt like pulling back a cosmic curtain, revealing hidden mechanisms of universal interaction. "We're not just defending," Park said quietly. "We're going to turn their invasion into a weakness." The research facility transformed. It was no longer just a scientific installation. It had become humanity's first line of defense against a threat that could erase entire civilizations. Alien diplomatic channels continued sending messages, complex reports, statistical analyses, bureaucratic discussions that would take months to resolve. Humans were already building solutions. As night fell outside, the research facility continued its relentless work. Humanity was preparing to do what no other species had even considered possible. They were going to fight back, and they were going to win. The Void Swarm had no idea what was coming. The Global Military Command Center looked like a living organism of technology. Screens flickered with data from every corner of human research facilities. Outside, massive spacecraft were being constructed in orbital shipyards, their designs unlike anything seen before. Captain J. Park stood watching multiple holographic displays. Each screen showed a different aspect of humanity's preparation. Weapon development, strategic planning, dimensional research. They were building something more than an army. They were creating a comprehensive response to an extinction-level threat. Yun Choi walked in, carrying a data tablet. Her eyes were tired, but determined. "We've developed something interesting," she said, pulling up a complex dimensional mapping system. The prototype weapons looked nothing like traditional armaments. Some resembled intricate musical instruments. Others appeared like abstract mathematical sculptures, but each represented months of intense research and calculation. Military engineers worked alongside theoretical physicists. Where most organizations would create separate departments, humans blended disciplines. A quantum physicist might be discussing tactical deployment with a marine commander. An astronautical engineer could be collaborating with a behavioral psychologist. Global resources had been redirected. Every major research facility was now working on one single project: understanding and defeating the Void Swarm. Universities suspended normal operations. Private technology companies paused commercial projects. Satellite networks tracked the Void Swarm's progression. Each day, the invasion zone expanded. Red markers showed consumed star systems. Blue markers indicated potential invasion routes. The threat was growing and time was running out. Training simulations ran continuously. Soldiers practiced fighting in environments that defied traditional physics. They learned to operate weapons that seemed to break fundamental laws of science. Every training scenario pushed human adaptability to its absolute limit. "We're not just preparing a defense," Park muttered, watching a training simulation. "We're preparing a complete strategic counterattack." Orbital shipyards worked around the clock. Massive vessels took shape, each designed with unconventional technologies. Quantum communication systems, dimensional displacement drives, weapons that could potentially disrupt extra-dimensional invasion mechanisms. The global population remained surprisingly calm. Decades of technological advancement and complex global challenges had prepared humanity for extreme scenarios. Where other species might panic, humans organized. Yoon's research team discovered something unexpected. The Void Swarm wasn't just consuming space. It was absorbing information. Each consumed system provided it with more data, more understanding. It was learning, adapting. "We need to be 10 steps ahead," she explained to Park. "Not just in technology, but in thinking." Military strategists developed scenarios that defied traditional warfare concepts. They weren't just planning battles. They were creating comprehensive dimensional strategies that could potentially turn the entire invasion into a trap. Psychological preparation became as important as technological development. Soldiers were trained not just in combat, but in maintaining mental clarity in environments that challenged fundamental perceptions of reality. Communication networks with the Galactic Confederation remained open, but humanity was no longer waiting for consensus. They were creating their own solution. Prototype dimensional disruptors took shape in research facilities. Each device looked more like a complex scientific instrument than a weapon, but within their intricate designs lay humanity's potential salvation. Park reviewed the latest strategic models. The Void Swarm was massive, consuming entire star systems with terrifying efficiency. But humans had something unique: the ability to transform impossible challenges into opportunities. "We're ready," he said quietly, watching the final preparations. The entire planet felt like a massive coordinated organism. Every resource, every technological capability, every human intellect was now focused on a single objective: stopping the Void Swarm. And nobody, absolutely nobody, was betting against humanity. The first contact happened silently. No massive explosions, no dramatic space battles. Just a quiet, calculated intervention that would change everything. Massive human vessels emerged from quantum displacement zones, their designs unlike anything the Void Swarm had encountered before. They moved like liquid mercury, fluid, unpredictable, defying every known law of spaceship navigation. Captain J. Park sat in the central command deck, his hands steady on the quantum interface. Around him, a crew of carefully selected specialists worked with machine-like precision. Each movement calculated, each decision a potential turning point in galactic history. The Void Swarm approached, expecting the same predictable defensive patterns it had consumed in hundreds of previous star systems. Massive biomechanical entities stretched across dimensional spaces, their form both terrifying and incomprehensible. But humans were different. Yoon Choi's dimensional disruptors activated simultaneously across multiple strategic points. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were more like precise mathematical instruments designed to create controlled chaos. The first wave of Void Swarm entities suddenly found themselves confused. Their dimensional absorption mechanisms encountered something they couldn't process. Mathematical algorithms that didn't follow any known invasion protocol. Target acquired, a crew member announced, her voice calm and professional. The human vessels moved in patterns that seemed almost random, but each movement was a carefully calculated strategy. Where alien civilizations saw complexity, humans saw solvable problems. Quantum entanglement weapons fired, not massive energy blasts, not traditional projectiles, but precise dimensional interference signals that disrupted the Void Swarm's fundamental invasion mechanism. Large sections of the extra-dimensional invasion force simply destabilized, not destroyed, not blown up, just mathematically dissolved. Park watched the holographic displays. Complex mathematical models showed the progression of human intervention. Each second revealed another layer of strategic brilliance. The Void Swarm tried to adapt. It had consumed thousands of civilizations. It understood patterns. It learned from each encounter, but it had never encountered humans before. Smaller human support vessels moved like a coordinated swarm. Each ship operated with near-perfect synchronization, where traditional military forces would require complex communication. These vessels moved almost like a single organism. Yoon's research translated into real-time tactical advantage. Dimensional disruption protocols created localized zones where the Void Swarm's fundamental invasion mechanisms simply couldn't function. "We're not just defending," Park muttered. "We're rewriting the rules of engagement." The battle wasn't about massive firepower. It was about intelligence, adaptability, the human ability to transform impossible challenges into opportunities. Alien observation platforms watched in stunned silence. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced civilizations witnessed something unprecedented. A species they had considered primitive was systematically dismantling an invasion force that had consumed entire star systems. Hours passed. What should have been a massive, destructive conflict became a precise, almost surgical intervention. The Void Swarm's invasion routes began collapsing, not through brute force, but through mathematical precision that exposed fundamental weaknesses in their dimensional invasion mechanism. Park allowed himself a slight smile. Humans had always been good at solving impossible problems. This was just another challenge. As the final dimensional breach collapsed, silence descended across the battle zone. No dramatic explosions, no massive debris fields, just a clean, precise intervention that had completely changed the galactic understanding of warfare. The message was clear. Humans had arrived, and they were nothing like anyone had expected. The decisive moment had passed, and humanity had not just survived. They had transformed the entire concept of survival. The aftermath was eerily quiet. Massive holographic displays showed the complete dissolution of the Void Swarm's invasion. Croots. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge watching the dissipating energy signatures with a calm that surprised even his most experienced crew members. No grand speeches, no celebration, just the quiet confidence of a species that had just, redefined galactic warfare. Yoon Choi's research teams were already analyzing the massive amount of data collected during the intervention. What they had accomplished wasn't just a military victory. It was a complete reimagining of dimensional conflict resolution. Alien diplomatic channels suddenly became very interested in humanity. The Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council convened in an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of advanced civilizations watched recovered battle footage with a mixture of shock and disbelief. Humans had done what no other species had even considered possible. They hadn't just defended against the Void Swarm. They had completely dismantled its fundamental invasion mechanism. Mathematical models showed how human intervention had exposed critical weaknesses in extra-dimensional invasion strategies. Park reviewed the final tactical reports. Each line of data represented millions of saved lives. Entire star systems that would have been consumed now remained intact. Civilizations that would have been erased now had a future. Communication networks across the galaxy began sharing the same message. Humanity had changed everything. The human vessels returned to their staging areas. No dramatic fanfare, no massive celebrations, just professional, calculated movement that spoke volumes about their approach to complex challenges. Alien observation platforms continued tracking human movements. They were trying to understand something that defied their fundamental understanding of technological development. Yoon's research teams were already looking forward. The data collected from the Void Swarm intervention would provide decades of scientific exploration. Each quantum disruption protocol represented a potential breakthrough in understanding dimensional mechanics. "We're just getting started," she told Park during a routine debriefing. Global human communication networks buzzed with a quiet sense of achievement. No panic, no hysteria. Just a collective understanding that they had done something extraordinary. The Galactic Confederation's diplomatic channels began requesting detailed information about human technological development. Species that had previously ignored humanity now sought comprehensive meetings. Park understood the deeper implications. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental shift in galactic perception. Humanity had proven something critical. They weren't just another developing species. They were a force to be recognized. Research facilities around Earth continued working. The intervention against the Void Swarm was just the beginning. Each discovered dimensional mechanism represented a potential future technological breakthrough. Alien civilizations that had spent centuries developing complex defensive technologies now found themselves studying human intervention strategies. What humans had accomplished in months would take other species decades to comprehend. The quantum disruption protocols developed during the conflict would revolutionize multiple scientific disciplines: theoretical physics, dimensional mechanics, extra-dimensional communication strategies. Park watched the final reports compile. Each data point represented a potential future. A future where humanity wasn't just a participant in galactic civilization. They were becoming a critical strategic partner. No dramatic speeches were needed. The data spoke for itself. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The triumph wasn't just about defeating an impossible enemy. It was about demonstrating a unique approach to problem-solving that would reshape galactic understanding for generations to come.